Really, I'm happy to be here today to share information on a very important conversation that we've been having in our district over the past year. I'm going to invite our Board of Education President, Mr. Peter Forsgren, to come forward and say some opening remarks. Mr. Forsgren. Peter Forsgren.
Thank you. It almost seems appropriate to tease this group about how they spread out throughout the auditorium, so you way in the back. Well, don't you expect everybody to come up to the front or something? Anyway, stay where you are, that's fine. We can talk to you anywhere. Grateful that you've taken the time to be here today for indeed a discussion that's been going on for quite a long time. But, you know, over a year and a half ago, we started a process, right, called our long-term strategic plan. It's because we have been considering many different things, right? We had, years ago, received a report on transportation. Some of you may have heard about that, right? And then we did a study on flipping times, and we really were engaged in that and thought this was the best thing for students. But it kind of contradicted some of the recommendations we had in another report. And in this long-term process, we learned about our strengths, we learned about our weaknesses, we learned about what we wanted to become, so how we keep our strengths and build upon that. And we also learned about our threats, right? What will keep us from getting there. So much of that was financial, a lot of it dealing with some of those circumstances that aren't always in our control. And so it was a great formative time period for us to get on paper all these things, so we know on paper what our strengths are, we know what our weaknesses are, and where do we want to get to. So it was all really wonderful information, but then it started all the other discussions, all the big decisions we have to make. We know about, and Brett's going to show us some of these things, right, how people feel about our facilities in the community, and the aging of this and that, and how some of us feel about our interactions at the state level, and how our dependence on state aid, and we're never quite sure what we get from them because they don't follow a formula that allows us to plan. How do we get control and take ownership and have the ability to make these decisions? And to me, and this is me personally, I'm happy to welcome you all here as the president of the board, but I want to just share my personal opinion, at least in terms of our business meeting that happened this last Tuesday, was walking away feeling like we're doing it, that we are in control, that we're able to make decisions, that we were able to make changes and understand who we are and what we want to be, and make decisions based on those. But there's still decisions yet to be made, which is why we're here today, right? One of 4 meetings to understand specifically, and part and parcel to all the overall arching discussion is what do we do with our facilities even? Do we keep them as is? Do we keep our students going where they're going? Do we combine them? And so we've studied a lot about that, right? We looked at the financial side in the public workshop months ago. This is going back to last year where we first said, okay, well, what would be some of the cost benefits of if we didn't work this? And we had that and set that aside. And then we looked at, over and over again, we looked at our facilities, just the cost of every facility that we have. What would it take to keep them going for years to come? And included in that was, again, this potential combining the River Delaney students with the high school. And then we took the financial side and we said, okay, let's put it over here to the side a little bit. We can't put it to the side ever for permanently. And we said, what are the non-financials? Because as a Board of Ed, if you look and understand the Board of Ed's core beliefs, you know that we want to be student-centric, right? What is best for students? Those are non-financial things, which isn't entirely true, as it always takes finances, right? But we wanted to decide what is best for them. And so we've gone through and we've looked at that. We've been presented with research. We've been able to review that. We've been able to ask a lot of questions. And then it comes ultimately down to, you know, what is it people want? And how do we weigh all those things? We're at the tail end of this. We have a goal indeed that by the end of this month we will make a decision. The decision has not been made. It's time for us to take what we have and add to it still. And so it seems prudent, though, to share more, and Brett has more details. I'll turn that time back to him to present some of the greater details of things that we've looked at, what's brought us here today. But we want to spend the bulk of our time listening, responding, hearing you, and you know, trying to get the information. Because it was Will Roger that maybe said, you know, it's not what we don't know that really hurts us, it's what we know that isn't so. Right? So we think we know something, and maybe it's not the case. We want to listen, we want to hear, we want to be able to respond and answer questions about things that we've been looking at over the last, at least this school year and even longer. So thank you for taking the time being here today. We're grateful that you're here. We're grateful that you have dedicated this time. Thank you, Brett, and time's yours.
Hey again. I would like to introduce Joyce Kostick, Marty Cardona, and Kevin Glover. They are here as part of this conversation. They've been integral in some of the big conversations that we've been having. They're very interested to get your feedback. Today, we're going to be talking about giving you a little context of where we've been throughout this entire process. And I think it's important that we don't forget where we've been, so we realize and have clarity on why it's important to have purpose as we move forward. We're going to discuss the educational and fiscal implications of a potential merger. At any point in time, if there's questions, please don't be afraid to raise your hand, and we'll do our best to address them. I believe there's 3x5 cards out and about, and there's additional ones up here. If we need to get those to you, just raise your hand, and we'll have somebody get you those 3x5 cards. And also understand how this decision impacts facilities planning. It's one big conversation. They're interdependent of each other. You can't really have one without the other. So those are the objectives. We hope to get out of here in about an hour 15, hour and a half at the most for a time frame. And this brings me back to our purpose, our why, and it goes back to this idea of what I experienced today with Brotherhood and Sisterhood Week. I was fortunate enough to see our family talk this morning, and our students, and of course Don Monticelli, talked about the feeling that resonates throughout our community. There's opportunities in Fairport that we take for granted, and they just happen. We expect them to happen, and we're proud of that. And then I was able to go to Martha Brown and listen to an incredible assembly that was so moving. It spoke to all 600 plus students in the gymnasium at Martha Brown. And as superintendent, I have the good fortune of experiencing it all. I get to hang out with our E&L students. I get to see all sorts of fun activities, lab experiments, plays that are occurring, lessons that our students are presenting information on in our humanities class. And the students that are here in Fairport, they're experiencing that. But we have a deeper obligation to the students who have not even come to our schools yet, to be able to sustain our program, to make sure that we're giving them the best today. For the students who have not even come to our schools yet, this is why it's incredibly important that this Board of Education has always, foremost, has talked about a long-term strategic plan. Last year, there was the District Advisory Council, or the DAC, I'll be referring to. We had over 3,000 people share very high expectations for our school community. Over 3,000 people. Our consultant from the University of Rochester said that was unheard of. To get that number of people speaking about their schools is something that we should be proud of. We had over 100 stakeholders, which included community members and staff alike, participate in the actual District Advisory Council, where they processed information, survey data, made recommendations, and we came up with our strategic initiatives. And it's important that we don't forget our strategic initiatives, because it's important to get wrapped up in these conversations and lose the purpose. The strategic initiatives speak to the high expectations for educational programming, making sure that we take care of our facilities, and doing it in a fiscally sustainable manner. Those are the expectations of our community, and I can say with great pride and confidence that these are our expectations, making sure that we have high-quality programming, that we manage our facilities, and that we can do it in a fiscally sustainable way so the students who are not here today can experience the same incredible moments that our students are experiencing today. As we're going through this process, this other idea of maximizing building aid through project phasing, this is not a next year conversation. And I may be saying that multiple different times, so you can get that message out. This is a 5-6 year conversation from December of 2019 if the board chooses to do so. So please keep that in mind, that you can't have it all in one shot, no matter what the board decides to do. If the board decides that a merger is not appropriate, we still have a commitment to our buildings and our facilities. If the board says we need to repurpose Minerva Deland and merge, it's a 5 to 6 year commitment. And then we need to minimize and manage the impact on teaching and learning. We have a lot of that going on. That's our priority. We can't lose our focus. And we hope to share a little bit of that today. Again, the District Advisory Council spoke to our educational programming, facilities planning, and fiscal sustainability priorities. Making sure that we have opportunities for students, the same opportunities, the brotherhood sisterhood programs, the asset programs, all the co-curricular activities, the incredible elective programs that we have at the high school, the right class sizes at the elementary. Flexible learning spaces kept coming up. We need to make sure that we take care of our facilities and we create spaces that we're proud of, create spaces that allow us to be flexible and responsive to the new and changing dynamics of the world. Collaborative spaces are the norm of many school districts going through renovations. We need to focus on our collaborative spaces. And this idea of coherence in our curriculum. This is something that's been alive and well since I was a building principal. There's this expectation and hope that we are aligned from a curriculum standpoint, no matter what school you go to, from Martha Brown to JP, to Brooks Hill, to Jefferson Ave, to Northside to Dudley, that there's this vertical and horizontal alignment that spirals all the way up through the high school years. That is an indicator of highly successful schools, highly successful programs, and student success, that curricular coherence. Worth mentioning. Safety is always at the forefront. Technology. If you turn to our students, they're highly engaged in technology. We have an obligation to have them use it in a constructive and responsible manner. Professional development, making sure that our staff has the right tools and resources, that there's capacity, not just in pockets, but systematically. And what's the best way to do that? And again, nurturing our facilities, making sure that the facilities are well kept, maintained, and striving for 21st century standards. Facilities that we can be proud of, and fiscal sustainability. Visiting the perception data of our focus groups that the U of R engaged in over multiple conversations with multiple stakeholders, over 1,000 people shared their insights for our schools. There was overwhelming consensus that Fairport schools were well maintained but dated. There was not a commitment to collaboration in building design. There was little emphasis on technology and STEM education. This is our community members saying this. This is school members. This is our staff saying this. One respondent told us that for decades, Fairport has emphasized the educational program at the expense of facility maintenance and updating. And people would recognize that our facilities are tired in some junctures. And we need to make sure that we have pride in our facilities and invest in our facilities, and that's where we get into the planning pieces. The most common responses were to leave the configuration as is and move the 9th grade to the high school. Priorities, educational programming, again, 98%. So when you think of the incredible programming that we had in our school district, from our co-curriculars to our electives, to our commitment toward our students with unique learning needs, alternative ed programming, to our class size initiatives at the primary and throughout our district, 98%. So that's where we need to spend our time. 97 said safety was important, not surprisingly, technology, professional development, and again, there it is again, facilities. These were the themes that we've been moving on with the past year, and our strategic initiatives highlight that. Here's some more information. 92% of our community members say, let's upgrade. 54% said we should reduce our facilities so we can remain efficient and effective and sustainable. And 81% said, hey, if we took care of our facilities, it would show a lot of pride. And maybe if somebody was going to choose between a neighboring school district in Fairport, the If we had the right facilities, maybe they would come to Fairport. So the strategic initiatives were born. And this past year, we've been focusing in on the, where it says review and improve building safety requirements and process district-wide. We've all experienced the safety audit. If you haven't had the safety audit, it's coming. It's where we're focusing on all of our processes and systems to support safety. It's to create a multi-year plan to meet the essential building improvements identified in the New York State mandated building condition survey. We have to do a building condition survey. It's called the BCS. And that's where pretty much our entire facility goes under review, and where we find code improvements that need to occur, mechanical improvements, health and safety of our buildings is under scrutiny, and we focused on that throughout most of the year. And this idea of preventative, or implementing and documenting preventative maintenance plans that result in cost avoidance. So we have a plan, we're working the plan, and this is part of that conversation, which you'll see in a few moments. The second initiative was this concept of facilities planning. We have been engaging in a complete cost-benefit analysis of combining Renewable Land and Fairport High School. We're focusing on pursuing building renovations associated with a recommended reorganization plan. And this idea of 21st century learning spaces, it's that last bullet. We hope that we are going to be continuing to address these priorities like we've done this year and well into the future. This past year we did another enrollment projection. This was important. Initially we had initial projections of settling around 5,300. Those were 10-year projections. Well, we've learned that 10-year projections are not credible. Industry standard is 5-year projections. And if you take a look at our graduating class in 2019-2020, we're looking at approximately 480 students with our special ed students as part of that cohort. If you look at that same year, we are bringing in approximately 400 students. If you look at our total K-12, we're at 5628, and in 5 years we're going to have 5623. So there's lots of leveling occurring throughout our entire organization. We're going to have graduation class sizes between 415 and 440 students. And if you continue to project deep into the kindergarten, that's where we're going to continue to be into 2030 in a very approximate manner. Enrollments can change, but if you take a look at Fairport and Carrington, we don't have a lot of building permits out there. We don't have a lot of spaces for tracks to build and to come forth. So these numbers are fairly predictable, and that's good for planning purposes. So we're at a point where we're not going to be seeing these extremely polarizing enrollments, these incredible shifts in class sizes. We feel like we have some predictability around that, and that feels good. If you take a look at this graph, past enrollments from 2005 to 2006 to 2009, 2010, and you compare them, again, that's for the 10, 11, 12 building in blue, and you compare them to projected enrollments from 2019 to 2024, you can still see that we will not reach the points that we've reached in previous years, and that's with 4 grade levels. We had more students at FHS with 3 grade levels. And a very important part of this conversation, because we are a school, and our #1 priority is teaching and learning. The educational impacts were important conversations that the board engaged in throughout the year, and that staff talked about from both Remember the Land and FHS when they visited with the board. The ideas that they processed were expanding student opportunities. So anything that expanded opportunities for students was an important conversation. And by the way, that was a District Advisory Council priority. Transitions are incredibly important. If you are a student at Northside Dudley, you can transition up to 5 times in our district. Curricular coherence, making sure, again, that there's vertical and horizontal articulation of our curriculum, because it's an indicator of student success and staff readiness. How can we continue to align our times to research, our start times to research? If you repurpose Minerva the land, and there is a merger, this conversation is alive and well. If we stay exactly where we are, there's still significant costs to think about and that we may not be able to achieve. Continued use of Minerva land assets. We know that there's athletic fields here. That's not going away. Our youth programs use our facilities. Our interscholastic programs use our facilities. They need to be well maintained and kept to the highest standards that our community expects. The auditorium. Our middle schools use our auditoriums. Our elementary schools use our auditoriums, particularly here at Minerva land. And if Minerva land is repurposed, this could be a place for swing space to support instructional programs if the board decides to have a merger. I'm going to have Mr. Stevens come up really quickly to talk a little bit about the fiscal impact.
Okay, thank you and good evening. So the next piece really is looking at the fiscal impact and primary areas that to focus on in terms of if a merger were to take place between Minerva and high school. Primarily, the expense side of the budget is looking at the different efficiencies as well as staffing and operating. So those two pieces are represented by approximately $321,000 and $29,000 between transportation and operating. Key piece to remember is transportation tables with the net out the piece on any efficiencies there. For expense, efficiencies estimated about $350,000. And then the other side of the budget is the revenue piece. So looking at any projected revenue that the district would see from leasing buildings, and this is just based on conversations and other areas of leasing that may take place in the county, estimated about $70,000. So overall, between the two, it's approximately $420,000 from the fiscal side. Again, looking at the different staffing efficiencies, operating, and the net revenue estimate piece.
There is an expectation, and it's in our strategic initiatives, that we manage our facilities, all of our properties. For example, district offices, Palmer Place, Victor Egers Road where Whitebrook Park is. We have property at Northside Dudley. These are pieces of property that we are obligated to continue to review and understand how we could best use those properties as a way to offset debt, to get one-time lump sum payments to support future capital projects, so on and so forth. So there is an expectation that you'll see within the next couple of years us talking about relocating district office into a building, relocating Palmer Place into a building, taking a look at professional development at the high school and seeing where we can utilize our space differently throughout the district. So those are also potential revenue or debt reducing items with our assets that are important to recognize. I want to stop at this point, and I just want to open the floor to questions, anything you want us to reiterate. It's speaking at you, and that's bad teaching. I want to give you an opportunity to ask questions at this time. So the question is, and I'm repeating this because the microphone, if we lease or sell property, does the state have a voice in saying that? I can give you my answer, but I'm going to have Mr. Stevens jump in and share a little bit on that.
So there's two pieces to that. The pieces you see up on the screen related to staffing efficiencies and revenue piece. No, the state doesn't dictate those. Those would be savings again, operating wise, staffing. It would be prudent in the district to look at and consider how monies could help offsetting future capital projects and balancing that with the budget as well as capital work. And selling any district property, there is a requirement to place funds into a mandatory reserve for debt service. So that's the one piece there when we would get the one-time income of selling any property required to use in that manner. But overall, in terms of the efficiencies you see up above on the screen, no, those pieces are managed within the district's budget.
But there are strict guidelines, and SEP gets to have their voice and say into it. So, for example, if we lease property, any of our properties, there's only certain entities that we can lease to. When we sell a property, and if there's debt on a property, that money that we get from the sale of that property needs to go to debt on that property. So there's strict guidelines. It's not going to be, you know, hey, we got this lump sum, let's go. It's there's ways it needs to be managed. And I think that's an astute question. Thank you. So if there is a merger, what's the scope of work that needs to occur at the high school? That rolls us into the next part of our presentation. That's fine. I want to address that. In essence, yes. FHS has changed its footprint throughout the years. There has been, you know, if you take a look at the last capital project, the $29.2 million project, 4 classrooms took up the main entrance for safety and security reasons. ENL, RTI, these didn't exist in the 1990s as prevalent as they exist today. We're happy and we're proud to serve our students. You know, there's staff dedicated to that, rooms dedicated to that. There's special ed classrooms, there's 10 of them at the high school. Back in the day, in the 1990s, a lot of special ed classes happened in the hallways or in makeshift classes or closets, right? We weren't proud of that, so we're happily able to service our students as our buildings have grown. Professional development is also taking up space there, so there's some pieces that we need to look at to get our schools up to snuff. And that's why it's going to take 5 to 6 years. That's why it's not, if the board chooses to make this decision, it's something more planning needs to occur. And if you take a look at our priorities up here, you know, the state gives you aid one time on a STEM edition. And it just so happens one of our District Advisory Council priorities, strategic initiatives, is this idea of 21st century spaces. We want to make sure that we bring students over and we have the right spaces so they can experience this concept of 21st century learning. There's an automotive lab at the high school. Has anyone seen the automotive lab at the high school? It's the same automotive lab that was built in 1970, right? Modifications need to occur to that environment significantly. The lifts are in like a makeshift mode at this point. Our students deserve better than that. Our science classrooms are pretty much the same science classrooms that some of you who went to school at FHS, they're the same science classrooms. Not a lot has been done. We feel our students, our staff, can benefit from new or newer, newly renovated facilities in this realm. Team rooms, right? Enough said. We've seen those team rooms. When other people come and visit our team rooms, they're not a showcase of pride. There's some safety issues in those team rooms as well. And an athletics renovation, reconstructing the existing technology space into athletics office space and our fitness center. And again, it's just giving that whole area a new look. It addresses code violations or code issues, I should say, not necessarily violations that were identified in our VCS. It addresses mechanical, electrical components of maintaining and caring for your investments in your facilities. The cafeteria and kitchen renovation. Reconstruct and combine the existing cafeteria with kitchen spaces so we can make sure if we do bring people over that we're able to keep the same number of periods. If you look at our current cafeteria, it's chunked, right? We envision a cafeteria which you'll see where there's enhanced supervision, that there's spaces where will be moved out, where we can have special classes involved in flexible environments, from our NASA Hunch program to our robotics team to extracurricular teams, and we'll be able to benefit from another LGI, which you'll see in a moment. Reconstructing the existing library with teacher workrooms. We understand that we are taking back some space, but we are confident that with approximately 7,000 square feet, we'll be able to reimagine new spaces for staff. They can work together, work in isolation. We feel that there's unused and untapped space that user teams can really help develop to make it a comfortable space for planning, preparation, and collaboration. Using the library a little bit differently. And again, there it is, the science classroom, modernizing it, larger, safer science classrooms. And I know that that's always a priority. This is what it looks like from the building condition survey. This needs to happen regardless of a potential merger. So if you take a look here, we're protecting our investment, looking at our building condition survey and saying what needs to be done from a mechanical standpoint, from an electrical standpoint. Our boilers need replacement. Our thermostat need to be modernized just to maintain our infrastructure. And in orange, you'll see a renovated cafeteria, open space. You'll see a collaboration room and a re-outfitted faculty lounge workroom. And again, open spaces so you can have clear sight lines. Open spaces so on Saturday afternoons or after school, co-curricular groups can use this for learning, expanded learning opportunities. Right now, our robotics team, thanks to the gracious acts of Mr. Dunn, has been using Martha Brown for the past several years. High school students who I'm speaking to would really appreciate that gesture, but their home is at the high school. You'll see that the gymnasium has mechanical, electrical, and code pieces that need to be brought up to snuff. There'll be some work in that area. And again, you have your science classrooms occurring no matter what needs to occur. This is without any type of potential merger. This is if the board decides that we stay exactly the way we are today. This is going to be one of my recommendations because it's a community expectation. It does support some of our district initiatives. We do have spaces here for learning to occur. There will be an upgrade in our automotive center. I'm confident that we can get that done. If the board decides that a merger is appropriate, this would be a phase 2. Or excuse me, phase 1? Where am I? We're still in phase 1. Yes, so this would be a merger in phase 1. where we would do pretty much the same exact thing that we've done here. Nothing would change. Phase 1. This would be a December vote if the board chooses to do so. And it's the same exact scope of what you just saw. Science classrooms, collaborative spaces, programming in the right area of the building, modernizing our learning environment, the LGI in the cafeteria, gymnasium improvements, turf field, reconstruction, all that's part of the BCS. And then this piece right here would occur in 2022. It would be a capital improvement project, another project. And this is where you would see a technology bump, where you get one-time aid in this area right here. This is where you'll see technology classrooms coming over in one area of the building. You'll see a renovated fitness area. You'll see the athletic director's office shifted over. And again, this is a safety and security piece because this part of the building is wide open. That will be managed. You'll see space being utilized differently in the library. You'll see classrooms being taken back that were work rooms or professional development rooms. But again, this is a potential project that will be completed approximately in the years 2025 and 2026. So this needs to happen first if there's a merger. If there isn't a merger, I'm going to recommend that this happens, and the board will have to make a decision. Before we go any further, do you have any questions about any of these floor plans? And I would invite some of our friends. Yes?
Right. If there is not a decision we recommend first, is there going to be what?
Yes, there is, and we can get to that in this right here. If there, well, we don't have it up, but we have it in the other one, right? So there would be a, it's like an $8 million add-on to our bottom line cost if we needed to come in and do work, BCS work, learning space work here at Minerva Land. So we do know that we have it chunked up. This chart right here is broken down in phase 1 and phase 2. We do have this chart right here that speaks to, and I'm so sorry it's small, it's just, I can definitely make this available. It will be available online at some point, but you can see it says option 4. Okay, we've been looking at a myriad of options. Option 4 would be adding Minerva Land scope work into the projects. There was an option 1, but we did not receive maximal aid on option 1, and I would not recommend option 1. It's a new science edition. It does take care of needs, but we don't have the right building aid units, maximal cost allowances to achieve that. So I would not be recommending that. That's why we're settling in on 2 and 3. Eric, did I do okay with that? Sorry. Any other questions regarding our?
What are team rooms?
Team rooms are places where teams go. Let me just get back here, I'm sorry. Team rooms are places where teams go, for example, to get changed. Where did the conversation, where did it come from the question? Thank you. It's where teams go before practice, after practice. It's where they come together. It's a separate room than the locker rooms because the locker rooms are used during the day for students. This is for your soccer teams, your basketball teams, your football teams. They have equipment that needs to be stored. There's a first aid place where kids can go and get taped up. It's a place where other teams can come so they don't use our facilities. So it's a functional space. That's a really good question. Yes, pool is part of this conversation. Right here. for a potential capital project in 2022. The whole pool area would, from mechanical pieces to electronic components of it. And again, this is all concept. The board can make different decisions. Right now, we have the gym being renovated in phase 1. And then in phase 2, that's when the pool would come on. If you've ever been in our pool, from the tile to the infrastructure that's underneath the pool, you know, those guys are doing incredible things just keeping that maintained, but we do see it as a priority that the building condition survey needs. Any questions about the scope of work or project ideas? I'm going to have Mark Esposito come up from campus construction, our construction manager, to talk about the phasing and the master planning of it, because it isn't as simple as, hey, let's just go do it next summer. There's lots of phasing and timing it up with you know, future debt. So, Mark.
Thank you very much. So in putting together projects for master planning purposes, we look at, so we'll give you a fiscal responsible project to break it up into phases. Trying to go about almost a $90 million project in one fell swoop would be a difficult process. It's also something you cannot perform in a 1 to 2 year process anyways. There is, no matter any way you try to vote something like this, it's going to be a 5 to 6 year project, as Brett had mentioned. So we looked at it from the colors aspect that you've already seen, with the blue being phase 1, the yellow being phase 2. There was some thought processes of going into it for construction purposes, where we need to renovate the science classrooms at the top of the building and work our way down with a lot of the infrastructure pieces that come with it. And looking at that first piece of this, try to equally divide these two projects up. We're about $47.1 million, and looking at this as a total worth of construction. And then also on the second phase of this, just about $43.1 million, which allow them the classrooms to come in that are needed for this facility. They do have other work at the other buildings associated with this. Every building the district owns in this phase except for Minerva Land. The first phase of this will really be focusing on the BCS items at the other buildings, working on secure entrances, toilet rooms and science rooms in different buildings, focusing on the key parts that were needed for that. And then in the second phase of these other buildings, bringing in a 21st century classroom into each one of the buildings and upgrading the DDC control systems that work on the HVAC systems.
So, for example, how many summers do you need to complete the science rooms? I was thinking, like, you know, it'll be done in 6 months.
No, so to build out that science wing of close to 16 classrooms up there, it would be a 3-summer process to be able to build rooms, move people over, build them out. There's a lot of work that goes into building those spaces.
Oh, the cafeteria renovation. Why is that important to you?
Building out a cafeteria space itself will be over 8 months in construction, and that not going to allow you to do that during a summer time period. Kids, we all know, have to eat throughout the school day. We'll have to find alternate locations in the building, like the library or a gymnasium, so we can continue renovation through those processes. So the construction purpose is very difficult.
I did that.
So moving on.
Yeah, this is just, again, this is the basic schedule of dates that we've been following. We're in the phase of having these informational sessions, giving you an opportunity to ask you questions like you've had. You'll see that there's community and staff meetings alike. By the end of April, the Board of Education will announce their decision on potential merger, or stay exactly the same, and give some other parameters to guide future decision making. The Board of Education will determine the scope of this work. Again, you know, to what extent we saw some numbers here, right? To what extent is the community willing to bear? That's what the board is going to be reflecting on over the summer. So when we come to school in August and September, you know, we're going to be talking about a possible future project. Questions about the timeline? And again, if there's one thing I want you to hear, that we will not be doing this next year or the year after. This is a 5 to 6 year journey from December 2019.
So just another slide here that we put together just to show what some other local districts are doing to keep maintaining their facilities. They're also required to complete a building condition survey from New York State, same as Fairport does, and it's showing how that everyone's planning to be able to maintain and keep their infrastructures up and their facilities usable, keep them to the up-to-date standards that students are requiring now for the educational process. As you can see, it is a planning process. No one's going out there and doing very large projects that are going to happen over 2 years. It is something that they put together, raising the money and saving the money to be able to put out capital projects is something that needs to be a thought-out process that I believe your DAC committee that was looking at that was one of their major priorities in doing so.
And it brings us back to where we started. At the end of the day, this is about our strategic initiatives. Our board adopted strategic initiatives that the community, school members, and even students had a voice in. It's about educational programming, making sure that we give our students and our community the education that they deserve and they think they deserve and are required to have in Fairport. We all have those high expectations. It's about managing our facilities in a thoughtful manner that is fair, that is efficient, but also speaks to our values and our pride in our schools. It's making sure that we're protecting our investments and not leaving them out there for these big capital projects every 10 years. We need to get on a cycle. There needs to be a plan. The Board of Education has made a commitment towards that. You would see that in our budget this year where we allocated $800,000 toward protecting our investments with our maintenance and making sure that we're doing that on a yearly basis in a public manner. And this idea of being fiscally sustainable, making sure that we're making decisions that will protect our schools for future generations, making sure that we're using our dollars wise and effectively for the betterment of our community and most importantly our children, and maximizing state aid. I showed you one of these. Option one was not maximizing our state aid. That was us saying we want it and we're going to get it, whatever we got to do. We're going to spend whatever we need to do to spend it. That didn't last too long. We need to do it in a way that's fiscally responsible, a way that allows us to use our maximal cost allowances and have it mesh with our decreasing or declining debt. Minimize and manage impact on teaching and learning. As Mr. Esposito said, multiple summers, swing space, eating lunch in certain areas without interfering with the educational program. That's why we have partners with our construction manager. So in a nutshell, that's where we are. And I'm going to open it up for another round of questions if there are any at this time. Hey, Sarah.
So I was on that, and one of the big things that we talked about was instructors and spending. And so I'm just curious, like you said, that you're proposing this even if there is no merger. So if we do all this with no merger, is there cost savings there that that would charge the private clients?
I'm trying to be careful. It won't be as much as a cost saver. So, no. Again, will we have to manage our facilities? Am I going to look at decline enrollment and, hey, maybe Palmer Place and district office could be dispersed somewhere in the district? There'll be cost savings there that will impact our debt. We might get one-shot lump sum deals that will help offset some financials as well. As far as getting any type of efficiencies, as far as realizing some of those efficiencies, and again the time study piece, those will fall short. And that's where, again, that's where you saw the $420,000 estimate, and that was an approximate, but at the same time it was a conservative estimate. Any other questions? Do your best.
All the stuff seems so well thought out, and everything about that list are all
So it ends up the enrollment's off. That's what you're saying. And we find ourselves in 2023, 24, 25, and all of a sudden we see these pockets, right? That's what keeps me up at night. And that's where this chart was sort of born in my mind is what do we, even at our lowest or our greatest point in 2007, 2008, we're still not going to achieve that number of students. If you look at our historical enrollment even further, these enrollment trends, now we have a live birth ratio of 0 to 1. That means this. We have students leaving the district, but we also have some students coming in. And that's why you'll see these cohorts growing, right? And if you do the math on it, it continually comes up. Now, the guy who did our long-term projections would not guarantee a 10-year projection, but he would say softly that, again, our numbers are going to be between 420 and 440. And that's in 2030, right? And we should be reviewing who we are and what we're doing more frequently than we have been done in the past. And I take a lot of caution because I know what's at stake here. But you also have to realize this. The way we have this phased, I think it's important to recognize that in 2019, this occurs, right? All this stuff occurs. Now let's say if something happens, the tide change between 2019 and 2022, we haven't done anything that hurts. Because the BCS, this is all about the BCS. This is the work that needs to occur no matter what. Now, as we get closer to 2022, I'm going to be sharpening my pencil twice. I'm going to be talking to different experts to even make sure that I'm informed even more so, because once you get to 2022, it becomes real. Right? The third graders that are sitting there today will be affected potentially by this by the time they get to 9th or 10th grade. Okay? But we have time to get it right, continue to measure, continue to make sure that we're only going to cut it once. We could get down the road and see a different projection. There could be, who knows, like a rezoning of districts. Maybe not, probably not, but maybe, who knows, right? So we're going to be cautious, right? We're thinking about it. I'm in trouble, I got a science teacher. Logan. Thank you, Logan. That was 3 grade levels versus the 4 that we're bringing in. And our graduating classes on this one, again, we have graduating classes right now of 468 in 2019-20, and they're going to be lower as we continue into the future. We were seeing 550, we're no longer there. Dave?
So the plan, most of the things we talked about was consolidation of efficiency between North Lane and high school. There are any plans investigated consolidation of
So the next part of this strategic initiative, facilities planning, is to continue to look at a possible reconfiguration of our middle schools. Right? That needs to occur. I need to understand what's happening here first. I can tell you that the math doesn't really add up, and this word feasibility keeps coming up to do different things and try different configurations, just off the cuff. But that's part of our next conversation, is to see what's happening with JP and Minerva DeLand. Maybe Minerva DeLand becomes the new Johanna Parent. But again, if you look at some of the basic numbers and the room utilization, that's challenging without a addition at this point. That's very rough. I hesitate to commit to that. But yes, that's part of it, but we would definitely have a plan going forward.
For everything that is planned and needed, how does this affect the pricing test?
That was the goal. When you take a look at our goals, was to make sure that we have our declining or decreasing debt. It's going to be coming off, and you phase this in a way that doesn't or minimizes the tax impact. We're still studying the tax impact, and the board needs to continue to determine the scope of the project. Either option, whether there is a merger or there isn't a merger, depending on the scope of the project, will determine the amount that will impact the taxpayer and the amount of money we use from our reserves. Reserves are very important. It helps us offset the cost of any type of capital project in the future.
So by the time it gets to a vote, supposedly in December, you'll lay that out to the community?
That will be laid out in a very meticulous manner, as close as the approximate that we can get. That's an exception. Brian?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Brett, and the board. You go back to the DAC process and just how thoughtful everything was. As a parent of, you know, 2 young children in the district and friends with young families and a graduate and employee, I can tell you there's just so much pride. Like when that high school got upgraded, that main entryway, just the appearance, they're counting on us. Families are counting on us for these improvements. So a lot of work. Trust whatever decision you come up with, but just so proud of the process, and I think we can see what we come up with. So really wanted to thank you. This is a heavy, heavy lift, but it's exciting. People want to see upgrades. They want to see cutting edge, and I think the facilities will match the pride that people have. I don't think they can say that right now for all of that since we've been here. So thank you.
Thank you. And that's why I'm proud of this work, because we can say that we touched the community, that we had the input from the community, and it just wasn't staff. There were community members who were part of the district advisory council. There were people that had nothing to do with the school. Yeah, sure, there were people that had students in the school, but their voices, their hands are part of this, and that's what I'm proud about. I'm grateful that the board gave me the opportunity to engage in such a process, so thank you. Susan?
Yes, that was the meeting for staff. And so fiscal sustainability is really a concern. We're talking $90 million, but in the end, we're also thinking about living wage. We will come back to the district and ask for pay raises, and not if the community feels that they're already sucked all that money out. So that's one of the major concerns, is the groups of races. We don't want it to have to be that choice. So that has to be wrapped into the whole, I don't think you're thinking about that, but that we are thinking about that in that idea of fiscal sustainability. Because we did have to interrupt 60 people that really did help our fund balances. So that is in our meeting too. So all of that goes along with the whole move forward.
And I think that's exactly why we're here, and I know that our board is really interested in hearing those comments and feedback just like that. And I feel free to continue to have comments like that, or if you feel like you want to write out a comment for the board to process, I know that we would be able to get you those cards right away. But that's very well stated. Thank you. It's definitely a consideration. Any other questions? We have cards up here. We'll have them up here on the table. We'll come out, and most people have them. Okay. Any statements from any board members? Or thank you all. Mondays are tough. I appreciate you making this a priority. Again, we'll be doing this again very soon. Tomorrow night at Fairport High School, 7 p.m. in the LGI.